Good evening, everybody in America, all our fellow patriots, our fellow parents, all of our fellow citizens who love their kids. And I know there's millions of you out there across the country tonight. Thank you for tuning into this live stream. This is the most important live stream I've ever been a part of. The information you're going to hear tonight is absolutely critical. I can guarantee you, when you get through watching this presentation tonight, you are going to spring into action. You're going to realize, like I did when I learned these facts for myself, that there are things you need to be doing right away to protect your kids from the most dastardly, evil, monster types in our country and really around the world that have made a profession out of targeting our children, our most precious resource, the one thing we would die for in a blink of an eye. They're coming at them, and they're coming at them every single day. So as we get through this live stream and you're watching this, I would encourage you, number one, to repost this. If you're watching this on X, hit that repost button. I don't care if you have 50 followers, 5 followers, or 1 million, hit repost, because the information tonight is critical. It literally will save kids' lives. It will keep kids from having their futures destroyed, their psyches destroyed. This is important. Way more important than music, way more important than politics. There's no politics when it comes to protecting our kids, whether you're left, right, in the middle, or otherwise. We all love our kids, and that's what tonight is all about. When you want to pose a question tonight, and we will be answering some questions at the end of this live stream, towards the end, the way you ask a question as you hear things being said, go in the comments section and just type in your question. And we'll be monitoring those questions, and at the end, we're going to pick several of those questions to answer live on this live stream. I'd like to thank all of my friends and influencers out there who have reposted this, that took my phone calls earlier today and my emails and texts and agreed to repost this for us. It's that big of a deal. So thank you to all you guys out there for pushing the button and making this happen. You know, we've had viral moments in this country over the past several years around politics, around cultural events, around silly stuff sometimes, like just dumb things that happen. We'll turn them into viral moments, and you look up and there's millions of impressions and millions of views on things that aren't that really important. Tonight is actually important, actually critical. So I'm asking you, all of you that are watching tonight, make this a viral moment. Make this a moment where American parents stand up against predators in this country coming for our kids. Push the button. It's that simple. If you're watching on your iPhone, if you're watching on your laptop or otherwise, boom, hit that button. Make this a viral moment. Millions of people should see this tonight. That is our hope. That is our goal. But whoever does wind up seeing it, we hope that you take it to heart and you put it into action, what it is that you learned tonight. And I'm just going to give you a heads up. You're going to hear things tonight that are disturbing, things that are going to anger you, things that are going to put a knot in your stomach. When you start to understand the tactics being deployed against American children right now, and the way they are entering your home without ever opening the front door, without ever breaking a window, and you find out how they're coming at our kids, you are going to become furious when you understand what they're doing. And because of that furious feeling that you're going to have, you're going to stand up when this is over, and you're going to start making changes just like I did the first time I heard this presentation. I would also like to thank the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, for reposting this live stream. I made the request to the President. I told him what we were doing, that I was going to be with Homeland Security, and we were going to have a very serious discussion about how to keep American children safe. And you know that part of his platform when he campaigned was, I am going to help American children. I'm going to keep them safe. I'm going to rescue the ones that have been abducted and that are being trafficked. That is number one on the list. And guess what? The First Lady has made it her mission to make sure that American children are brought back home and are taken care of. So thank you, Mr. President, for reposting this. You're doing a favor to the country tonight. Okay, so I'd like to thank a very special lady. someone I've gotten to know over the years very well. When she heard that we were going to have this exercise and do this live stream, she signed off on it, gave it her blessing, and was very excited that this was going to happen. Basically, you have a civilian, me, reaching out to a government agency, DHS, and saying, why don't we join forces here? Why don't we do something out in public in front of all of America and let them hear a conversation, not between a country singer and a federal agent, but a conversation between two dads, two guys that have teenage kids today that we're raising in this environment and knowing what the threat level is. That's what you're going to hear. There's nothing fancy going on, nothing slick. This is going to be very straightforward. You're going to catch every single point and be able to move on these things. So I want to thank the Secretary of Homeland Security, Miss Kristi Noem, and she's going to give our opening remarks tonight. God bless.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank John Rich for joining us for this important conversation about the safety of our children. It's a topic that should unite all of us, and I appreciate the opportunity to highlight the work of Homeland Security investigations and all that they do to combat online child exploitation. At the Department of Homeland Security, our mission is to protect the American people, and that includes protecting our children. The internet has completely changed how we connect, but it also has opened new doors for predators who want to harm our kids. That's why we launched Know2Protect. Together, we can stop online child exploitation. This national campaign is designed to help arm parents, help kids, and trusted adults with the knowledge and the tools to prevent online exploitation before it even happens. Now, as a mother and as a grandmother, I know that by having the right conversations, we can make sure that our kids and our teens understand all the risks out there, and we can equip families with resources. We can help stop online predators right in their tracks. As governor of South Dakota, I was very aggressive and took a strong stand against terrible crimes like this. I signed legislation into law that enabled tougher prosecution of those who wanted to use AI to generate child sexual abuse material. We're going to continue to work closely with our states and with our local law enforcement partners to go after child predators, but we also need all of your help to help prevent these crimes. President Trump has made it a big priority to protect America's kids. Online and off, we're going to bring the full force of the federal government against those who want to harm our children. I want to thank President Trump for declaring April National Child Abuse Prevention Month. We can highlight this month everything that we're doing and raise awareness to help stop the threats to our kids. The Trump administration is going to aggressively arrest and prosecute those who sexually exploit and abuse our children. Now, this fight requires all of us, law enforcement, parents, educators, kids, and community leaders. We're all going to work together. And thank you to everyone for tuning in tonight and for being a part of the solution. Again, John, thank you for your passion and your friendship and for fighting for our kids. Together, we can make this a safer world for all of our children. God bless you, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Secretary Noem. We appreciate you signing off on this and allowing it to happen. We know that that this is a huge focus for you as a mother, as a grandmother, keeping American kids safe. So thank you for allowing this to happen tonight. I think it's pretty cool that civilians can reach out to a major federal agency like Homeland Security, and they actually respond, and then they act, and there's not a bunch of red tape or protocol to go through. They say, yes, this is a great idea. Let's get the message out to the masses. So thank you, Madam Secretary, for allowing this to happen tonight. So I'd like to introduce to you our guest tonight. I'm gonna read you his stats because it's pretty impressive. Department of Homeland Security Special Agent Dennis Fetting, over 23 years in federal law enforcement, over a decade leading child exploitation investigations. He's also conducted hundreds of IGuardian presentations like this one to thousands of youth and adults over the past 10 years all across America. This is a dedicated man. This is his full-time job, is to get the bad guys and to tell us how to protect ourselves from the bad guys. Agent, it's great to have you. Welcome to Nashville. Welcome to the house.
Thanks so much, John. I appreciate it. I've been excited about this for about 2 months. So the fact that we get to do this now, I'm pumped. This is information that every family needs to hear. This is stuff that every parent, every teen needs to hear. And so I thank you so much for allowing us to use this platform
Absolutely.
and to discuss this very important information.
And you're a father.
I'm a dad. Yeah.
You're a dad, and so you have a son close to my son's age, 16, I believe.
Yep, that's right.
I've got a 15-year-old. So our boys are right in the mark where a lot of these guys come for that age group.
100% right.
Of boys, especially. I mean, they're coming after boys a lot.
Yeah,
boys and girls.
This crime type is equal opportunity.
Yeah.
It's children, both genders, it's race, religion, politics, all that doesn't matter.
They don't care.
This is equal opportunity offenses against children, and these predators, basically their main goal is to target these kids for either more content or financial gain, things that we're going to talk about tonight.
So you've given these demonstrations, these seminars, sometimes to groups as little as 3 or 4 people.
That's right.
You've driven an hour to 2 hours just to sit in a room with a community, and maybe 4 or 5 people show up. You still give the same presentation. You're a patriot. You love your kids, and you know what a problem this is. So thank you for being here tonight. Let's get into this tonight. And before you get started, just give us a broad stroke overview of exactly what parents and teens are going to learn about tonight.
Sure, absolutely. So we're going to talk about a bunch of different topics, and the way that this presentation is broken down, this presentation is appropriate for both adults and teens. We are going to talk about heavy topics, as you spoke about in the intro. We're going to talk about things like sexting, nude and inappropriate images. Where do those go? The fact that there's a permanency to that type of data. We're going to talk about topics like child sexual abuse material, which by statute is called child pornography. That's sexual images and videos of children. But what we're really trying to do is to turn that terminology into what it really is. Call it what it is. So if I say CSAM, that's child sexual abuse material. That's horrible things happening to children, basically being transmitted amongst offenders.
So when they hear the phrase CSAM, that's what that means.
That's right. Yep.
Got it.
Yep. So we're also going to just talk about how does exploitation happen. We're going to cover the different steps, grooming tactics. What is an adult predator? Where do these images live? And then most importantly, and this is going to seem like, it's a lot of doom and gloom throughout this presentation, but we have tons of resources throughout this entire presentation. We're going to give you tips to protect. We're going to talk about ways that parents and teens can stay safe. And all of them are extremely easy. All of them are free. Even though this is a very difficult topic, the solutions are actually not as difficult as people think. And so our aim is to bring them to that point.
And if someone is watching tonight that is a victim of exploitation, if they're watching live on this live stream, I would really like to focus on them just for a minute.
Yep.
Where should they go right this second if they are a victim of it? Or if you know of someone who's being victimized by this, where should they go to report this?
So we're actually going to have on the live stream, there's going to be resources that are going to be shown. There are also multiple different outlets. You can go to Know2Protect.gov. That's KNOW2Protect.gov. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has a hotline, a tip line that you can call. Those are 2 great resources. And those are going to be showing up, while you and I are speaking throughout this presentation.
Okay, great. Well, let's get into it.
Excellent. Yep. So again, can't thank you enough. This is such valuable information that you folks are going to hear tonight. What I would like to do is sort of kick this off right at the top with the resource that the federal government has come out with, and that's Know2Protect.gov. So I'm going to show a very quick 1-minute video. Real law enforcement, federal agents from Homeland Security investigations that are going to talk about the problem that we're seeing, but then also the solution. So we'll kick into that, and then you and I can just get into this conversation.
Okay.
When predators are targeting a child, they're most likely going to go after the most accessible child that they have to them.
So they'll look at their social media, they'll look at their school, they'll look at the pictures they're posting.
They will either befriend this child or become part of their friends lists or become part of their contacts and followers. You've got to get involved. You've got to make sure that things are appropriate and that their friends lists are checked, the people they're playing games with are checked.
Have these conversations so that it is a safe environment, so that if an individual does contact them online, they know that they can talk about what has happened.
The Know2Protect campaign will educate and empower children, teens, parents, trusted adults, and policymakers to prevent and combat online child sexual exploitation and abuse.
Because of how vast this problem is, it's not one that we can arrest our way out of. We need your help. To learn more, go to Know2Protect.gov.
We're going to be going through our Project IGuardian presentation, the same one that your family heard that sort of spurred you to move forward on this. So this is the same one that we go out and do in the communities. We have special agents around the country and really globally around the world that are conducting these presentations, sometimes, at night in free time. And like you said, I've done these presentations for 10, 11 years because I've seen some of the worst things happening to kids. I'll drive hour and a half, 2 hours, and I will literally sit down. It's happened. Two parents in a rural elementary school, and we just have a conversation, head home, do it all the next day, because this is a really valuable thing. And so we've put a lot of heart and effort into this Project IGuardian, which folks are seeing on the screen right now. So if I can describe, for the people at home, just so you understand, who am I? What is this agency? Why should you even listen to us? So Homeland Security Investigations, we're the primary investigative arm of the Department of Homeland Security. We are a global agency. So of course, because we're a federal agency, we have offices all around the United States and territories. We have 30 special agent in charge offices and then sub offices covering the entire continental United States. But what we also have, and something that we're very proud of, is we have over 90 offices in over 50 countries, because our mandate and what we're supposed to be doing is targeting transnational criminal organizations. So whether that's Mexican cartels pushing fentanyl across the southern border, whether that's Tren de Aragua sex trafficking rings that we're dismantling, whether it's Chinese money laundering organizations that are committing elder fraud against U.S. citizens, domestic terror cells that are looking for the next terror attack in the United States, national security investigations, or even foreign actors that are trying to enter the United States to steal our sensitive technologies. Those are all things that we work, and that's why we need that global entity. But it is never more true than in this crime type, which is child exploitation investigations, that we need to start focusing. And we have been focusing. It's basically our second largest case category. It's something that we've put more man hours to, other than narcotics trafficking, because it has become such a problem. And that is basically the online child sexual exploitation of our youth.
I heard a stat when I was digging into this a little deeper, that is it true that the number is, in 1 year, was 36 million tips that were called in?
That's right.
About kids being targeted online.
Yep, that's correct. And so, and actually, in a minute, what I want to do is sort of show the evolution of that exponential growth from, let's say, even the year 2014 until now. But that stat is actually true.
Unbelievable.
Yep, and that's what we're facing. And so what we have also is we have the DHS Cybercrime Center, the Department of Homeland Security Cybercrime Center. They're doing amazing work up there. We have a victim identification lab. That is nothing but forensic analysts and agents combing through the worst of the worst footage, looking for any small piece of information, any clue that can rescue a child. So DHS and HSI are putting so many resources into this fight. But what I think parents need to know, this is a global problem, and we now have true transnational criminal organizations that are banding together to target our kids. So you and I have talked a bit. I'm in my mid-40s. Both of us came up in a generation where we didn't have cell phones. If we had some, predator in the area, it might be somebody driving around in a white creeper van or something like that. These are
easy to spot.
Isolated individuals,
Yeah.
sort of lone wolves. Well, what the internet has done is it has brought together like-minded individuals into communities, full-blown communities, where they can discuss their attraction to children, how to avoid law enforcement, how to groom children, how to solicit offline meetings. And so that is a giant problem that we're seeing. That's the global problem, is we have sophisticated IT professionals. They're operating on Tor, on the darknet, on these Tor networks, which is the onion router and anonymizer, makes it very difficult to figure out who these individuals are. Very sophisticated now. And that's our mandate, is to sort of dismantle these crime groups.
Well, let's get into this presentation and let's start showing these parents what they're up against.
Absolutely. So I want to set the stage. This is an amazing video that was put out by Child Fund International that basically, it really depicts in a great way that thing we were just talking about, which is this day and age, what is the online predator?
When I was just starting out, it was harder. You really had to keep things hush-hush. But then the internet came along and everything changed. Now we hide in plain sight and share all kinds of things. We review, rate, make recommendations, just like anything else out there. Pre-internet, do you know how hard it was to pretend to be a 9-year-old girl? Now I just roll up looking like their BFF. And the best part? The only people who could stop me pretend I don't exist. You ask me, there's never been a better time to be a monster.
So let's dive into this whole presentation now, and let's get into it.
No, absolutely. So the monster video that you guys watched from Child Friend International really set the stage well. You know, that individual that was a predator, that was an online predator, was essentially a coworker, a neighbor, a father, a coach. And unfortunately, these are the folks that we're arresting. It's folks through all different socioeconomic spectrum, different job types. These individuals are sort of all around us, and so it's important for parents to remain vigilant. That was a depiction, but the folks that you see on your screen right now, those are real monsters. These are real world monsters. Like we told you at the top of this thing, we're going to be talking about real investigations. So the two individuals on the screen there were basically the two most wanted offenders against children at any one time. Not only were they running the largest CSAM, child sexual abuse material website that ever existed, they had multiple of those going on the Tor network. They also were hands-on offenders of children. So unfortunately, they were sexually abusing children, creating CSAM imagery and uploading that to websites. Now, because they were operating on Tor, they were only known by their monikers, which was Warhead and Crazy Monk. It wasn't just the United States government that was looking into these guys and trying to figure out who they were for years. It was also the Australians, the Brits, the Italians, the Germans. This was a whole global effort trying to figure out who these monsters were. It was actually our office in HSI Boston that cracked this case wide open using some amazing investigative techniques, tracking some cryptocurrency and some other things that they were able to figure out who the individual on the right there was. They figured out the Crazy Monk was this individual named Patrick Faulté. And then on the left, they figured out that individual Warhead was Benjamin Faulkner. Now, there's a few reasons why I highlight these individuals. Number one, it's important to understand for parents and for teens, these are sophisticated IT professionals that were running a global enterprise, multiple CSAM websites, hosting content, sexted images, basically things that were being sent out by children, but also produced imagery from hands-on offenses. So knowing that these individuals exist and that they're targeting us and our families is number one. Number two, I think it's hugely important to understand these guys could have existed anywhere in the world that there was an internet connection. And yet Benjamin Faulkner was a Canadian citizen and Patrick Faulté actually lived right here in Franklin, Tennessee.
He lived in Franklin, Tennessee.
Yep, Franklin,
so
Tennessee.
So about 25 miles south of where we're sitting right this second.
Yep, that's correct. Yep.
And you're saying one of the most notorious on earth.
That's right.
Multiple countries looking for this guy.
Yep. And so we had one of them right here in the United States. And so, of course, as soon as we figured out who these guys were, this was a global effort in trying to figure out how were we going to arrest these individuals. And so this case sort of plays out like a movie. It's an extremely interesting case. So we don't have the time to go through the whole thing, but I don't want to leave folks hanging, especially if you're interested in true crime. I'll sort of wrap it up for you. So we were having these global case coordination meetings trying to figure out how are we going to take these guys off together. They had encryption, fail safes. If they didn't check in certain times, all of their data would be wiped. All of these rats were going to basically disappear into the dark, and we were going to lose a lot of what we were working towards. Well, maybe by providence, one day, Benjamin Faulkner crossed the border and traveled south into the United States. And we had been watching Patrick Faulté every single day, monitoring all of his movements. And for the first time, he left our local area here in Nashville, and he headed north. So the two of them met up in Virginia with the unfortunate intention of sexually abusing a toddler, a young girl, whose father had allowed them access to her so that he could be a VIP member of one of their websites. So
wait. So the father offered up his toddler.
That's right.
To these guys.
Yep. That's the level of monstrosity that we see time and time again in our investigations.
I mean, that's a level of evil that you can't even comprehend.
Agreed. Yep, I agree.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt.
Not at all.
That just shocks me.
So the great outcome of this investigation was our SRT, our SWAT teams out of Virginia were able to execute search warrants on the location that they were at, take both of them off at the same time, infiltrate the network. The results of this investigation were so amazing. So many children rescued, so many offenders that were put away for life. Both these individuals are doing forever in prison. They were prosecuted in Virginia for the hands-on offenses of the children. They were prosecuted here in the Middle District of Tennessee for the global enterprise that they were running. That was an amazing outcome. However, the damage that they did in terms of training other offenders on how to meet children, hosting message boards where these individuals could chat and talk with each other, that impact is still out there, and there are still people right now that are running that exact type of a scheme at any one time on the dark net specifically. And so, what I'd like to do, I'm a big believer in seeing is believing. So here are some of the examples of things that linger on after monsters like Falte and Faulkner. There's our agents uncovered this sextortion guide online. We're going to talk about the crime of sextortion, but if you see that slide right there, you can see the chapters that are highlighted. These predators have put together a guidebook for other predators that talks about, hey, here's a great way to earn money easily, how to manipulate your child victims, how to blackmail anyone, and then even more importantly, how to avoid law enforcement. So these folks are teaching each other in every way that they can how not to get caught. These are intercepted chats that were basically from an offender to another offender where they talk about how your top priority should be acquiring your target's Instagram username. And I want folks to remember this because we're going to talk about Instagram and Snapchat and the correlation between the two, especially when it comes to predators.
The top priority is acquiring the target's Instagram, specifically Instagram username. Not to say that's the only way they target them, but Instagram, that's their go-to.
Yeah, correct. I mean, that's one of them, right? And it's because it's a primary platform for teens, right? So it's a great point. We're gonna cover all sorts. We're gonna name apps and things like that. And it's not that we're vilifying these apps. The fact of the matter is predators go where the kids go. This is the modern day playground. So again, when you and I were growing up, you go to a playground, some creepy guy lingering. Well, the digital environment is the modern day playground. So whatever successful platform kids are gravitating towards, guarantee there's going to be adult offenders there too. And so the other thing that's of interest though in this chat is that these offenders say once you get that Instagram account, get that username, check and see if their Snapchat username is linked in the bio. And I'm going to cover a reason why that's important later on, things that kids don't understand about the data that their phones are giving away at any one time. But this is real evidence. This is real chats, real things going on. And this is a bit shocking for folks, and it's sort of hard to see, but this is what one of these CSAM websites looks like. Sanitized so that you don't see anything. Every one of those blurred out images is something horrible happening to a child. But what I want folks to understand is these fully functioning sites have advertisements for other sites. They have chat boxes so that they can discuss usernames, how to find children, what's the newest platform, what is very valuable to children right now, what we call grooming tactics. You name it, that type of stuff is hosted on these sites. And so, I believe folks need to see this to understand this isn't theory. This isn't something, that we're inventing. These are the things we see in our investigations.
So these are highly produced think tanks of pedophiles.
Correct.
They're pedophile think tanks.
Sure, they work together in concert.
I would phrase that.
Sure.
Networked together.
That's right. Yep.
Wow.
And so going back to the point when you were talking about how this is an exponential problem. So we talked about, me and other agents in our agency going out into the community. So in 2014 is when we first rolled out Project IGuardian, sort of in its infancy, not at all what it looks like today in this amazing product. That was about the first year that the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children received its very first million leads of individual child sexual abuse online. And as you can see by that graphic on there, year over year, the exponential growth to the point that you made, which was in 2023, that number eclipsed 36 million individual tips. Now, those tips come in from tech industry, law enforcement, concerned citizens, victims. So it's a conglomerate, but National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC, is sort of the clearinghouse for that data. They assist law enforcement with so many different things, cataloging and housing child exploitation material, helping us locate and rescue unidentified victims. An amazing entity. But the thing that I was saying at the beginning of this is 36 million tips. You could take a full law enforcement entity with no other responsibilities and you still couldn't tackle that number of leads and tips. And so that's why we're doing this. That's exactly right. We got to get ahead of this.
So the way we chew into 36 million is by educating parents and young people as to how to not become a victim in the first place.
100% right. And it's easy. And there's actually easy solutions. I know this sounds like this is a insurmountable thing. It's not. And we're going to go over the different ways. So the first bucket, we talked about doing these buckets of information is just knowing the threats. And so what I want to throw to the viewers and to you, John, is sort of just what's going on in the digital environment. So one of the things I love to highlight, it is never too early to start talking to your kids about the digital environment, just what's going on. You're not going to talk to your young elementary school kid about the Faltes and Faulkners and the CSAM websites, but just talking to them about being a good citizen online, what they call netiquette, not trusting that everyone that they meet online is who they say they are. That is one of the biggest takeaways that you can think of. Look, in society now, we go to a restaurant and you look around and you'll see toddlers that sort of have an iPad in front of them or they're placed in front of a screen. Our children have Chromebooks and things that they're learning on. They're on their phones a lot. So our children at very young ages are sort of ingrained into this digital environment. It is really interesting to talk to a child victim about, for example, when they're playing a video game like Fortnite or a popular game, they have a very hard time differentiating a real friend, like you and I sitting here speaking, versus someone that they've squatted up with on Fortnite, let's say 5 or 6 times. Right. They will say, that's my friend. But they've never met that person ever.
So maybe the lesson is you tell your kids, if you haven't met this person in person,
correct,
you don't know who they are. So stay away from those people.
That's right.
Because what they'll do on video games, I'm sure you'll get into it, but some predator will act like he's the age that of the person that they're talking to, and he'll say, for instance, on Fortnite, he'll say, hey, I'm going to gift you a new skin. Yep. I'm going to give you something cool because I think you're fun to play with. That's or right. Whatever. And then the kid getting that new skin or getting those coins or whatever, those credits, goes, wow, this kid's great, man. He just gave me a free skin.
Yeah.
I like this guy. And now they're in. Now they're having a conversation.
You just described grooming to a T, which we are going to cover, but that's 100% the way it goes and the way it looks. So talking to these young ones about that concept is huge, and starting to plant the seed that everything that they post, everything that they send out from a tablet, from a device, even an email, a text, there's a permanency to that data, and it goes somewhere. And once it leaves, you lose control of that thing. And that's a big one, talking to the little ones about that. When our kids become teens and tweens, even if it's an uncomfortable conversation to have, sexting, nude images, inappropriate pictures, where do they go? How are they harmful? How long do they last? How can that come back to haunt you later on when you're trying to get a job? Internships. That's the type of thing we need to start talking to our tweens and teens about and having very open and candid conversations about that.
Okay.
So moving on,
I'm officially flipped out.
There's a lot more.
I know there is, but I think I want to just pause for a second. And if you're watching right now, last I checked, there's over 200,000 Americans watching right now. Repost this, okay? If you're watching this right now and you find this valuable, I promise your followers will too. Just hit that repost button for us. We want as many people as possible to hear what we're talking about tonight. This is absolutely crucial. Thank you guys for tuning in. Repost. All right, please continue.
No, thank you for that. So, we've collected up some interesting media articles over the last 5, 6, 7 years to sort of show this cultural shift in society where people are starting to wake up to the issues that are happening with screen time, with pairing young kids with devices. Celebrities like Selena Gomez, for example, talking about how social media has been terrible for her generation, pointing out, that it's impossible at this point to make social media platforms safe for users. Top investors at Apple, iPhones, talking about how they're now recognizing, and it's not just iPhone, it's Android devices, it's screen time in general, but there is a toxicity of having our kids in front of these screens all the time. Number one, because it really does open the door. The more they are online, the more of a chance they're going to meet some offender, but even just the mental health aspects. And you're going way back even to a guy like Sean Parker, right, who was one of the founders of Facebook with Mark Zuckerberg, openly admits in the media that when they created Facebook, that they were exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology. And I find that very interesting because now we do see this dopamine-driven effect, this desire for likes, followers, reposts, retweets. And we as adults, the adults that are watching this, if you're on social media, you have to admit yourself that when someone posts something that you don't like, or if you got left out of the block party, or it hurts you, right? It sort of impacts the way that you feel. Imagine that magnified through the lens of a child who's going through hormones or who's not quite settled into society. That's a really big deal and it's a problem. And so what that has led to, and I really enjoy this slide that's up on the screen, because now folks in law enforcement, parents who are engaged, counselors, doctors have known about this for quite a while, but now we have studies from folks like the American Psychological Association, the American Surgeon General, that have connected a real thing called basically iPhone addiction or technology addiction. TikTok's a great example of something like that. So TikTok was one of the very, very clever, one of the very first apps to understand that when a user logs into TikTok, if I just instantly start playing a video, I've got you hooked, right? So the children log into TikTok, video starts playing. Well, what's happening in their brains, and something we don't really realize, is every time that if we're scrolling through Instagram Reels or a kid's looking through TikTok and we see something pleasurable, our brain is giving us a little dopamine hit, just a little happiness, boop, every single time, right? The problem is that is like a drug in a certain way, where now what we're seeing is we as adults have it, but the children have it even worse. There's a withdrawal and a need. Kids are having a harder time feeling, just being bored, just sitting there, making up games on their own. They constantly need to have to reach for that device. We ourselves as adults, we feel phantom vibrations in our pockets. We think this is something affecting
Right.
all of us, right? And so,
Right.
but so much more to these kids whose brains are being developed. And so the last point on that, so last I checked, you're not a medical doctor, right? You and I have talked about our backgrounds.
I'm not.
And neither am I.
I do take a lot of vitamins.
Darn right.
I do my best. but yeah.
Neither am I, but thankfully, and I learned this about 6 or 7 years ago, I was talking to some clinicians at the Nashville Sexual Assault Center here in Nashville, and they kind of keyed me in on the brain development and the way that works. And so this slide up here is really great because what it explains is that frontal portion of our brain, that's the thing that controls things like empathy. You know, if I post something, how does that affect someone? Long-term consequence thinking. If I post something now, how will that affect me in 5-6 years? Something like that. Even the risk-reward factor. I want to do something now because it's pleasurable. I don't really think about the result or the consequence. Right. That's not fully formed until about the age of 22 or 24 years old. So I really need parents to think about this. If you are going to place a supercomputer, an Android or an iPhone, into your child's hands at the age of 12, how can you really expect them to navigate these waters fully with a brain that simply can't do it? Our kids are smart, our kids are great, they're brilliant, but they're not ready for some of the heavy consequences.
Let me ask you a real-time question about that, though, because so let's say your son or daughter are in sports.
Yep.
And they have practice after school, or you drop them off at a practice at some point, and you're not really sure when the practice is going to end. It's within this 30-minute window to an hour, and they need to be able to contact you and say, hey, practice is over, come pick me up. Or we got rained out, or something just happened, or I'm sick, or whatever, come pick me up. And they're unable to communicate with their parent. I know for me, that's why my boys got an iPhone when they were 13.
Me too.
With a lot of rules put on that iPhone. But that was the main point of it for me, was I want them to be able to contact me if something's wrong. Right. So how do you strike the balance on that?
So great question. And you had talked about this in the beginning. I'm a parent. My wife and I have gone through the struggles that every single parent goes through. Things like, when do we get our kids a device? What social media should they have? What's safe? What's not? I sit here as a government guy, but I'm a dad, and I have those same concerns. I'm not here to tell anyone how to parent. My job is to essentially make them aware, let you folks choose how you want to do it. But it's my personal opinion, and having talked to child victims, from having talked to counselors, to forensic interview specialists, the slow rollout approach appears to be one of the best ways to do it. So like you said, I did the same thing. My daughter was a swimmer, track, cross country. My son, baseball, ice hockey. And what we did was they got a device at the age of 13, like you said, with the idea that when you need to contact us, you have the phone, you have text messaging.
Yeah.
The browser, Safari browser, locked down, no social media. Through showing us that they can be responsible, not mess up for a period of time. All right, maybe now all your friends are on Instagram, you're a little bit older, we'll roll out Instagram. Mom and dad are going to be following you on Instagram. We're going to check your posts. We're going to be snooping. And by the way, this sounds like I'm on a soapbox, but the fact of the matter is, if you as a parent are paying for that device and you're paying for that cellular plan, should not be a password that can keep you out of that thing.
That's correct. You own it.
You got to keep your kids safe. And
I made my two sons sign contracts.
It's a great idea.
With me.
That's
and so
right.
This is an idea for parents out there that I did, and it's worked very well. That I bought the phone, I'm paying for the service on the phone, I'm loaning you the phone. Here's a document. This is a loan document. And there are stipulations for you to maintain the loan, or I can repossess the phone at any time if you break any of these stipulations in the loan. And it's about 1.5 pages long, but it's everything from you cannot download apps without my permission. I will always have the code to your phone.
Sure.
I can check your phone anytime, and on and on and on and on. And then I make them sign the contract, and I sign the contract.
Yep.
And if they break something in the contract, I go, well, let's go see what the contract says about what you did.
It's a great way to do it.
Then I pull the contract and we read it. I go, you're in breach of paragraph 4.
Yep.
Give me your phone back. And then I'll hold the phone for as long as I need to hold it, a couple of weeks or longer. And then they'll get it back and they go, okay, don't do that again. So there are practical things if parents will engage their minds a little bit, understanding what a dangerous device that is. What a dangerous device. We don't hand them a pistol when they're 13,
Sure.
do we? No, because something terrible could happen. They're
right.
not prepared to handle a firearm yet. You hand them an iPhone, there's all kinds of things in the iPhone they're also not prepared to handle.
Sure.
So I think there are practical measures.
Yeah.
Parents can get creative with how to do this.
100% right. And there are devices that are actually set up so that you can't access the internet. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but I think the slow roll approach, I don't think it's a realistic expectation nowadays to have your child abstain from that technology, because the fact of the matter is we live in a technology-based society. They're going to fall behind in certain things. But monitoring and rolling out slowly is a great practice, to your point. And so, to kind of move on a bit on this, one of the things we want to talk about is just what are kids doing online right now? So obviously social media, and we're going to delve into some of the specific social media sites. The big three right now: Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. They sort of rule the day with teens, especially middle schoolers. When I go and talk to a group of middle schoolers, high schoolers, and ask them, hey guys, tell me what you're on. Almost the entire auditorium, 250, 300 kids, is on almost all three of those platforms. So that's a big one, right? But they're also on online games. So we're talking about PC-based game, console-based games. Of course, now we have VR-based games. So the gaming environment is a big one that we're going to discuss. Video hosting sites, YouTube is another big one. Not only are kids creating their own content on YouTube, streamers have become almost like the A-list celebrities of our kids' generation. They care more about the most popular streamers than they do, let's say, like the box office celebrity. That's how YouTube is sort of taken over culturally. And then, of course, lastly, we have things like altered reality, augmented reality. We have the glasses from Apple. And now we have AI, generative AI, and these large language models and deep learning entering the realm as well, which we are going to talk about. But really fast, there's a couple things I want to highlight about the different types of social media. So number one of the threat points that we see is at apps that are basically chat-based apps. And there's a bunch. I could name them off. There's Chat Hour, Teen Step, Chat Step. There's a bunch, right? And the point is, and they come and go. Some of them are fly-by-night, but there are a bunch of apps that are designed for children that are just basically different chat groups to talk about different things. Just like when the internet first came out.
Like, for instance, baseball cards.
That's correct, right. And so
that's a big thing right now. I bet a lot of parents out there, especially if they got boys, their boys are into buying cards, trading cards, selling cards. That's become a big thing again, is sports cards. Both of my sons are big into sports cards right now. And it's a whole massive community of everybody from 60-year-old men down to 10-year-old boys that are buying and selling and trading cards. It seems rather innocuous, but not necessarily.
Well, correct, because what you will get is in any of those chat groups, and it's usually an offender posing as a same-aged boy or girl, just talking about the things that the kids are interested in, and then usually trying to move them off that platform and into some place that they control. So chat apps specifically are very problematic. Kick Messenger has been a very problematic one for us, where a lot of child exploitation leads come for a long time, for years and years, as another example of one. But I think overall, parents need to understand, if your kids are in those chat-based apps, you need to find out what chat rooms are they in, who are they chatting with, who are they connected with. That's a big one. And another one is live stream. So, we're very familiar. We're on X Live right now. We're doing a live stream, but there are a bunch of different live streams that are geared specifically towards children. Even group chats, like there's an app called House Party that's very popular with kids. The big vulnerability with any kind of live stream, and parents really need to pay attention to this, is a lot of them are set to public by default. So let's say, and we see this play out, let's say you and I, 12-year-olds at a sleepover over at your house, one of the friends brings a phone and they decide to do a live stream. Well, what happens on that live stream is, on a map with a radio button, it will show exactly where that person, geolocation, where they are broadcasting from. So anyone can jump in and out of that live stream. If I'm some offender, I jump into that live stream. I know exactly on a map where these children are broadcasting from. But worse than that is I can solicit to these children and say horrible things. You and your friends look hot. Why don't you take your pajamas off? Whatever, sexual things. And these kids, if they don't do it, I just jump out and go on to the next stream. And if they do, I've just succeeded at no cost to my time. So when live stream is in play, live stream takes places where we used to have a reasonable expectation of privacy, bathrooms, locker rooms, school bus, and turns it into a public forum. We need to be paying attention to what our kids are doing in live stream and lock that down from public to private. That's a big one. So
lock it down from public to private.
That's right.
I think that's a big thing. So it's not that your kid can't have Instagram. They can have Instagram if it is locked down to private. Would that be correct?
That's correct, yeah.
And why is that? So what does a predator think when they come across, they're tracking some kid, let's say they find him on Minecraft, and then they track them over to Instagram and figure out where they're at, and then they see that it is locked. What do they do at that point?
Well, you're going to move on, because that child you would consider a hard target. If it's locked and things are set to private, I would move on to the next child.
A hard target. So you guys at Homeland Security, you really look at a child that's a target as a soft target, hard target, not unlike how the military
Thinking
would talk
basically
about
how a predator would look at a child.
Right.
Easy access, or this is too difficult.
They're going to take the easiest route.
That's right.
So if parents make it difficult for them to get to them, they generally just move on.
That's right. Yep. And I'm going to give a live demonstration of how vulnerable Instagram can be versus how locked down it can be. We're going to do that in a little bit.
Okay.
But I want to talk about the gaming environment specifically. The slide that's up on the screen, nothing wrong with those games. Those are just very popular games, but I do need to highlight for parents that every single one of those games, we have worked child exploitations that have stemmed from those games. The game is the meeting place. So what I want parents and kids to understand is that's not where we're seeing a lot of the transmission of CSAM material or anything like that, but this is where offenders meet kids. They groom them through gifts. It could be offering Robux or V-Bucks, some kind of an in-game currency or gift cards, you name it. We've seen all types of things. And then moving the child off platform to social media, to a cell phone, something like that. And so parents need to understand, talking to your kids about staying on platform is huge. Not playing these games with headsets out with a bunch of different strangers. And if they do that, understanding what is grooming, what does that look like, that's a big one. And it's not just the games themselves, but it's also the various software and locations that support those games. Discord is an extremely popular gaming chat site where kids go in and chat and talk. But because it's so popular, there's a lot of adult predators on Discord right now that are chatting with children as well.
So listen, knowing what the downside is to having some of these apps, like you just mentioned, Discord, would it be crazy to think that a parent just goes to their kid's phone and says, I'm sorry, but we're deleting Discord? I mean, what's the downside to that?
Well, I mean, it's really, again, I think what that comes down to is, what is the child using for entertainment? How are they using it? Are they using it responsibly? Does the adult use that as the reward for good behavior type of thing? But
I guess the safest thing you could do would be, I'm sorry, but this is actually a dangerous app. You just don't realize it, and you press on it till it starts to wiggle and then hit X.
I think the key to that really is the idea that there's a lot of great functions that come out of these different apps. Again, to not fully vilify them, it's just the concept that because they're popular, that's where predators are going to go. And so
I understand that, but I guess I would say if you knew that driving to a certain location put you at greater risk or put your kids at greater risk, would you continue driving to that location?
No, I fully understand.
I just want parents to just consider that and go, is it worth it? That's it. It's not that any of the apps are inherently bad. It's just where the predators use to enter our lives. Listen, I said this before. What would a mom or dad, I'll ask you guys out there, what would a mom or dad, the mom and dads watching right now, what links would you go to keep a child predator from coming through your front door or breaking out one of your windows in the middle of the night and taking your kid away from you? What would you be willing to do to keep that from happening? I think I know the answer. Anything and everything within your power, you would do that. But these predators, the same ones that you would never allow into your house, are coming into your house anyway without you knowing about it, silently subverting the security that you put at your home, and you're not even aware of it.
Right.
I mean, that is the most unnerving thing me as a dad can think about. Who has entered my house that I don't even know about?
Sure. And actually, we're going to be showing a video in a little bit that depicts that exact thing.
I'm sorry to jump ahead, man. I'm like I said,
on it.
I'm talking like a dad asking questions. So
no, and now we talked about AI, and I think it's so important right now to tackle this, this new topic. This is basically coming to the forefront. It's becoming very problematic for law enforcement, for school officials. It's generative AI. And so the slide that you see up there on the screen really does a good job of sort of depicting how you can take any image now and alter that using generative AI platforms. The biggest problem that we're seeing in law enforcement is, number one, is now we have adult predators that are creating AI-generated CSAM imagery, taking real images of kids and turning them into sexual situations, AI-generated CSAM. There's an amazing investigation that I want to highlight really quickly. Basically, our office in Boston, but specifically our office HSI Tampa, recently arrested an individual who was for the longest time a hands-on offender on the darknet. We have individuals going back 6, 7, 8 years that was trying to identify this guy. And ultimately they were able to. His name is Justin Colmo. And basically he just pled guilty to these charges that he was charged with. So number one, he's a hands-on offender of children.
That means he physically
That's right.
abused
He
children.
physically abused children, filmed it, and created CSAM content and posted it up on websites. But the interesting thing about him and why I'm highlighting him is because not only was he a hands-on offender of children, but when he was arrested by our HSI agents, he had over 8,000 CSAM images created by generative AI. But even more so, and this is very disturbing, is he was going to public places. He was taking pictures of middle schoolers outside of a middle school, regular pictures. He went to Disney World. This is a man out of Florida with a GoPro, and he was taking videos of children. He was taking those normal pictures and videos, feeding them into generative AI and creating CSAM generated images from regular kids.
Unbelievable.
So what we're seeing now is the nexus between the hands-on offender and the generative AI to create entirely new content from real children that weren't even in a sexual situation. So that is a problem that we're seeing now.
And they could probably, if someone was targeting a specific kid, if they could find a picture of that kid, probably take that picture and generate CSAM material, then send it to that kid and go, look at this video I just made with you on it. I'm going to post this to everybody if you don't do A, B, C, D, E.
Can be used for sextortion tactics.
I'm
That's
sure that
exactly
happens.
Right. Yep, and it's a big problem. But that case is a great one that our HSI Tampa office worked. That individual pled guilty. He's awaiting sentencing. So I don't want to talk any more about that investigation, but that's a big one. And it sort of shows parents, what we're looking at. But even more so is in the schools, when we talk to school counselors, school resource officers, what they're encountering in that slide up there that I want to reference sort of shows some highlights is what we're seeing now, unfortunately, is a lot of peer-on-peer creation of horrible pictures on AI, bullying, threats, harassment, even extortion.
When you say peer on peer, you mean like a kid you go to school with?
That's right. So it would be like a child in the classroom, 2 juveniles preying upon each other, or one juvenile preying upon another juvenile. And we're seeing that time and time again in schools now because of generative AI, taking normal photos of classmates, turning them into something horrible. And I get asked this question a lot from parents. So number one, federal agencies, we don't prosecute juveniles. In these investigations, and I'm not talking specifically about the peer-on-peer AI, but in all of these investigations, we look at these children as victims. These are kids that we want to help, kids that we need to rescue and save. But when it comes to something like this, which is this peer-on-peer predatory behavior, state and local authorities have any number of different measures that they can use. Court-ordered counseling, juvenile sex offender registries, seizure of devices, placed into alternative learning centers. Really, a lot of that is left up to ADAs, district attorneys, and how they want to handle it, local sheriff's departments. But the point is, I really want to highlight for teens, if you're doing something like this and you're generating photos in AI that are problematic for other students, that there's a consequence to that. So I think that's an important thing to highlight because we're seeing more and more of that. So teens, be smart, don't do it, and parents have an understanding that's becoming a problem, in our schools. All right, so that was heavy, right? And we sort of already talked about a lot of things, but what we do is at each one of these is we do this tips to protect. And so the highlights real fast, we talked about the fact that technology is the modern playground, that these adults, offenders are going to be wherever the most popular places online. Knowing who your kids communicate with is a big one. So checking friends lists, getting rid of all of those strangers, removes all of those strangers that are pretending to be somebody that they're not, and really mitigates those risks. And then lastly, and this goes to your point, about looking into those sites, finding out whether they're even worth it or not. Should my child even be there? Is do your research. It takes 10 minutes at most at night. Just do a quick search. First thing you're going to get is advertisements. Skip those. You're going to see lots of great resources and sites that we're going to cover that talk about what's an appropriate app. What are the horror stories? So that is a really important thing. So what I'd like to do now.
So you're advocating on that. Sir, just to back up a second. You're advocating that a parent would be very wise to take their child's phone and, for instance, go to their Instagram account, and if they've got 800 followers, you go, that's a lot of friends for my kid. I mean, there ain't 800 kids in his school, maybe. And so you go line by line by line and go, do you know this person? Do you know this person? If you don't, delete.
It's great to have
block,
that
block.
Yep.
And you're probably, more than likely, blocking at some point a predator.
I mean, yeah, the chances
It's
are
very
if
likely.
you've got 800, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 followers,
and you're in the ninth grade.
it would make much more sense to get rid of all those prying eyes that have no
Right.
business seeing what's going on in your family.
So you get rid of them and then you make it private.
That's right. And you've done so much work right
Just
there.
doing that.
Just doing that. And that's simple. It's
Are you
free,
listening,
it's
guys?
easy.
I mean, put that camera on me. Are you listening to what the man just said? One of the simplest things you can do, go through your kids' social media with them, ask them do you recognize this follower? If they say no, block. What about this one? Yeah, she sits next to me in science class. Okay, she's good. What about this one? No, block. And once you've purged their follower list, privatize the channel. Lock it and privatize it. And you basically cleansed it of any possible predators. And then future predators can't even get in.
That's right.
I mean, that's a simple step because I think we're horrified right now hearing these stories, as we should be. And the question is, okay, I'm freaking out right now. What can I do? That is something you can do. That's an afternoon of sitting down and going through it.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about how does exploitation happen. We talked about exploitation, but really quickly, let's go how does it work? So this is a great video. It actually references exactly what you're talking about, which is when we sort of allow our children to have unfettered access to the internet, let's say at night in their room, statistically, that's when the worst things are happening, how literally and figuratively we are opening the door to our home. So this was a great video that was put out by the Internet Watch Foundation out of the UK. Let's watch this video really quickly and then we can discuss it.
Dinner in 5 minutes, Evie.
Don't be shy. You look so pretty in your picture, Evie. Just want to see what you've got under there. Just for me.
Dinner's ready.
Okay, Mum.
Girls are increasingly being groomed by adults to create sexually explicit images and videos. Make sure your home doesn't have an open door to child sexual abusers. Talk to your child. Agree boundaries and set device controls together. Visit talk.iwf.org.uk for guidance.
Important to highlight, that video was very specific to females, to girls, but like we talked about, this is an equal opportunity offender thing, so don't let your guard down, I think is the point to that. So how does this occur? How does this roll out? We talked about it's always going to be an online meeting place, social media, gaming sites, chat rooms, and eventually, and it's usually a fake profile, same-aged boy or girl, grooming tactics begin. So what I'd like to do is walk you through a local case example that we worked here, just so folks have an understanding. This is a real investigation. I keep it sort of general so that you'll never identify the victim who was in this case, but early teenage boy playing Minecraft. He's playing the Minecraft console-based version, so he's out in the world playing Minecraft with other individuals in the world. He befriends this, who he thinks is a kid online, when in reality this is an adult in Canada who is now grooming this child because he says, hey, look, you and I were the same age, we're friends, and they begin playing Minecraft together. He's helping him with skins and other things, and they become buddies on Minecraft. So eventually, as they're playing this game together, this guy asks him, hey, do you have social media? And the kid said, yeah, I got social media. And he goes, hey, why don't you, friend me, and then we can become friends on social media. And folks at home know, and teens at home know what we give away on social media. Now we can see pictures, where we live, where we go to school, where we vacation, what do our pets look like? These are all the things now that have opened just from that moving from a platform to social media. So this child begins complaining to this guy that his laptop's not working right. He's having some issues with it. So this offender, who's acting like a child, says, hey, look, I can fix your computer for you. He's a very tech-savvy guy. Just download this software. I'll remotely access your computer. I'll fix it for you. So he actually attempts to fix the computer. And there's a reason why. I know folks would think, oh, he installed malware. He did. No, in reality, this is a grooming tactic. So he's done this for this boy because now this boy owes him something. And so he says, hey, look, we're friends. I helped you fix your computer. We've been playing games for a while. Here's my cell phone. Let me get your cell phone. Why don't you just text me some pictures of you and your friends when you're at school, when you're hanging out, whatever. Kid doesn't think much of it, begins sending this guy pictures, right? So now they're texting, they're on social media together. This is an adult male posing as a teen. He's got a profile on social media that looks just like a teenage boy. He's stolen photos from other people. So now this guy starts the grooming habit. So he's sending gifts, different things to the kid's house via Amazon. The kid gets the packages when parents aren't home. And now this guy says, hey, look, I've been sending you these gifts. Why don't you get on webcam for me? And maybe it's in a compromising situation or maybe a little less close. And this is a gradual introduction of a risky behavior attached to a reward. Now, this early teen child doesn't understand if I go on a webcam or I do a live stream and I'm not wearing a shirt, that's just going out into the world. They don't understand that there's software that these predators use to capture that. Fast forwarding through grooming behavior, eventually this guy has this child doing different sexual things on video. When other kids come over to this kid's house to play video games, he's now asking this child to introduce those kids from the neighborhood to him, and the grooming continues. And so all of that started from solicitation through Minecraft and led through the creation, virtual creation, the self-production
diabolical
of CSAM. But even more than that, and this is something I think it's really important for folks to understand, is those videos, so that perpetrator was arrested, but those videos live on in other predators' collections. That child is out there. So every time that our agents knock in the door of some predator and go and collect the evidence and find that child's images, those videos, the National Center for Missing Exploited Children will send a notification to that family letting them know that the child's been victimized, that these images exist somewhere else. And so parents need to understand that a quick meeting online can evolve very quickly in those exact timeframes, in that exact way. And so talking about what is grooming. Sometimes it's just compliments. Somebody that you don't know talking about, hey, you're smart, you're pretty, you're cool. And if a child doesn't have a lot of friends, or maybe they're coming up in a hard environment, sometimes that's all it takes to make them gravitate to you. But we have seen in our investigations anything of value: peer-to-peer payments, Cash App, Venmo, plane tickets, bus tickets, perfume, jewelry, you name it. We have seen all football cards. Anything a child finds of value, that's a grooming tactic. That's a red flag. Children need to know that's a red flag, but parents obviously need to know that that's a red flag. And so that is exactly how exploitation happens, where it doesn't even take an offender ever physically touching that child to basically damage their lives, their family, and it lasts forever.
So what do you tell the kid who's online playing games? Is it as simple as, if you haven't met this person in person, do not trust them. Do not engage with them.
Yep, that's number one. And then number two, because look, I think it's a reality that as our kids get older and they start playing these online games, that they're going to encounter strangers playing these games. When they're young, I think it should be a rule that they only play games. Even the online ones, they're on the console, they're talking. Yeah. But it's with kids they know from their school, from their sports teams, from their church, from wherever, right? But they know them, family. When kids get older, I know they're going to be playing games, but the biggest thing is, don't leave that platform. Don't go from a game to a social media, because that is where the extra things start to happen.
It all stays on the game.
That's exactly right.
Because on the game, they don't have an image of the kid. On the game, they can't see where the kid lives. They can't find out any of that information.
Yep. And so the tips to protect on that is talking to your kids about grooming tactics. The teens that are watching this, that's creepy. That's not normal behavior. So knowing that that's a red flag. And then again, I get this question all the time: is this app safe? Is this a good app? Is this a good game? The bottom line is, any app, any game that has a communication feature, whether that's a text feature, a talk feature, there's a vulnerability there that a parent and a child needs to explore. And you need to at least look at that problem. Because if there's a communication to the outside world, it's a vulnerability that must be explored.
Is it true that when a predator finally does migrate a kid over to social media, that they can cross-reference that kid's profile and find out who their parents are, where they live, where they go to school? Like if mom has been posting pictures of the kid and you can find, the kid's name is whatever, John Smith, and he goes, okay, I know where he lives now. I'm gonna go cross-reference that. Oh, there's Mrs. Smith, Mr. Smith, there's his siblings, and all of those things where then when they lower the boom on the kid, when they make the demand, whether it's extortion, sextortion, or even worse, that they're proving to the kid that I know where you live, I know where you go to school, I know who your parents are, and they make the threats based on that.
Correct, because they can see the contacts and the friends
list.
And
then the kid is going, how does this guy know all this about me? He's got me under his thumb at that point.
Yep.
Right?
Yep, that's exactly. And so leading into that, and you always bring up the valid point that we move right into. So talking about personal data and what are our devices giving away at any time. So on the screen, is really elementary stuff. So I go and I talk to 4th and 5th graders as one of the lowest age groups that I talk to. And we don't talk about these heavy topics. We just talk about, hey, what's something you shouldn't share online? These kids will name every single one of those things up there that you see. Addresses, phone numbers, full names. They know that. But I've gone and talked to all the way up through 3 seniors in high school. And in the entire time, I've only had one senior tell me what is metadata, and I've still yet have a kid explain how does geolocation work. So up on the screen, we have some screenshots from Instagram and from Snapchat. So what I want to do, and this should come out not too clunky, is what I'd like to do is I want to do a live demonstration for parents that shows in a very short number of clicks how quickly can I access everything that you just talked about. So let's just go through this exercise really quick. So let's just say that I'm a sex offender that just moved into the local area. I don't know kids, but I'm wanting to reach out to kids.
Right.
All I need to do is essentially I can go into Instagram and I can go into the search feature and I can type in, as long as I know my local high school as an example. If I know the name of that local high school, I can search that local high school under places and I can click on that local high school, and what I'm going to get on a map, of course, is where the school is. Now that's not amazing. You can Google a school and find out on the map. But what I'm also going to get is I'm going to do this quick because I'm not trying to put a school or anybody's profiles out there into the world, but I'm going to get every photo that geolocated to that school.
Okay.
So that could be parents taking pictures at a graduation, students who are hanging out at a football game and they're posting pictures on Instagram. Now I'm a stranger, but now I'm starting to look at all these. If I go to the recently posted photos on Instagram, and it's loading for me right now, but it's going to eventually populate what I'm going to get. And if I click on this, I can tell you that at this school, which is local to us, the most recent photo was uploaded 3 hours ago from the school.
Okay.
And it's actually about some plays that are going on there. But as I scroll through these different pictures, I have students in sports games, I have kids in classrooms. And if I just keep scrolling down, and I'll just use an example as I come across an image. So there's an image on here and it's basically 4 cheerleaders at this particular high school, right? The problem is, so now that I've looked at this image and I'm some stranger, I do not know this girl who posted this account, 9 times out of 10, these teens are using their full name as their Instagram handle, as their profile.
Handle.
So this girl's using her full name. So it's, blah, 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 right? So now I know this girl's full name. I know where she goes to high school. Instagram will also, using the photo, it will show me in bubbles the names of all of her other friends in the local area. Still not the worst thing in the world, but if I were to click on her account, so now I've moved from the school-based search to this girl's account. Her account is set to public, and now I have access to every one of this girl's Instagram pictures. Everyone. It has nothing to do with the school.
Right.
So I now see her family, her vacations, bathing suit pictures, family. So this particular girl has 1,611 followers. You and I talked about this idea. So if I were to create my own fake profile, follow this girl, and I become the 1,612th follower.
Nobody's going to know.
Not going to scrutinize it. Now I can direct message this child looking like a same-age boy or girl and begin conversations. And all I did as a sex offender in the local area was go through about 4 steps to begin direct messaging this girl through her public
So 4
profile.
clicks away.
About 4, yep. Like we just did it right now, and now I have full access.
Within 60 seconds and 4
And even
clicks.
one more step is now that I'm in her personal Instagram account, if I click on one of her pictures and she has 30 likes, and I click on one of the people that likes it, I open the next child's account.
And you can
the
do it
next child's
again.
account. That's right. Here's the key though. Public account. On the screen, in the middle there, private account on Instagram. If this account is set to private, you have the block right there with the lock. That's it. That's all I'm going to see when I do that search. That's a hard target. I'm moving on because, again, the unfortunate truth is 8, 9 out of 10 kids have this public account. Locking it down is the biggest thing, but that's geolocation. That's personal information that these kids don't think about. From public to private is a big
So that
one.
one feature alone to make the account private is going to block almost 100% of any predator that would ever try to get
Correct, unless they accept a follower. If they accept a follower, then now they have access, but at least they have to accept that follower versus me blanket just seeing.
Which that would get their attention.
Correct.
If somebody said, I want to follow you, request to follow, and you look at it and go, I don't know who that is.
Exactly right.
Deny.
Right. Now let's take it a step further though. So Snapchat, right? So Snapchat has a functionality called Snap Maps. And Snap Maps is essentially, if you're enrolled in Snap Maps, you have all of your followers on Snapchat basically real-time following you in little avatars like what's shown there on the screen. So again, if a child has 1,600 followers, and this is where that predator conversation in the very beginning, which is get their Instagram handle and figure out if they're linked to their Snapchat. So now I become friends with this child on Snapchat and I can see their movements every day on Snap Maps. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that everywhere that little icon sits at night is their house. Everywhere it sits all day is their school. That's personal information that this thing is getting rid of.
And again, Dennis, why would a kid have 1,600 followers?
Good point.
I mean, I know singers that don't have 1,600 followers. So why would a local kid have 1,600 followers? The chances are, let's say a kid has more than 500 followers. What are the chances, especially if it's at 1,000 or more, what are the chances that at least one person in that follower count is a bad actor?
That's right. And
well, what do you
just
think
one,
it is? What do you think the percentage chances is?
I mean, it's
high?
hard. It's hard to know, but it's a high percentage. And why would you take that chance?
Right.
Because that one individual could be very problematic.
Correct.
And so with Snap Maps, you got to unenroll. You got to go to ghost mode and basically toggle that off. Don't let these strangers follow your kid around on Snap Maps. That's a big vulnerability as well. But those are two functionalities in two of the most popular apps that teens don't think about. They don't even realize the problem. So, and for folks that are wanting to understand how do you turn off that privacy setting on Instagram, up on the screen right now, you can see you just go under account privacy and you change it from public to private. That's step number one. It's super easy and it's something that we recommend. So now, metadata. So metadata, I've asked teens, nobody can tell me what it is. It's a simple concept. Basically, in every single picture that you and I take with our device, there is hidden digital information inside that picture. It's an exact date and timestamp down to hundredths of a second of when we took that picture, an exact GPS location of where you took that photo, and a bunch of other little information about the phone and the lighting and things like that. So to do another live demonstration, while we were setting this studio up, I took a picture of us, right? And so I'm gonna text you this picture on your phone.
You took a picture without my permission? How dare you, sir? How dare you?
So,
in my own home?
In your own home.
I feel violated.
So I'm gonna text you this picture.
Okay.
And what I want you to do is, this is an extremely important thing. And I want to highlight something to the folks that are watching this. And this is a very important anecdote. So I recall so specifically, we went out and we did a search warrant at one of these predators' houses. Now, this guy was using Kick Messenger to groom children, young kids, and then he was sextorting them and trying to solicit offline meetings. 50% of these search warrants that we go on are like, they're the worst of the worst things you can see. There's mold and food and hoarder situations, dead animals, rats running around. So our office did this search warrant at this location. We're sitting down with this offender, me and another agent, Andy Hendricks, who's a great guy. We're sitting down at the kitchen table with this guy, food stacked up, mold everywhere. Now, this is a guy that would love nothing more than to bring a child into that horrible environment to do horrible things. We began talking to this guy, and he began cooperating. We built a rapport with him. He started explaining what he was doing. This whole time, we're sitting there writing notes, little cockroaches crawling across our hands. We're flicking them off. And I asked this guy two things. Once we had gotten everything we needed from it, I said, number one, why were you using that app? Like, what drew you to it? And he said, I love social media because I can be anybody that I want to be. I can create 50 accounts and I can talk to any child and then I can move right on and they don't know where I'm at. And the second one is he was using cell phones to get kids to text in images. And when he said that, he said, you can get a lot of information out of a texted image. And I keyed in on that. So what I want you to do, and we'll show the folks at home as a live demonstration with metadata. So for this demonstration, I turned my camera app's location function to on. So I texted you this image. If you don't mind calling up that image that I texted you.
Okay, it came through. Let's see.
So the image that I texted you, it's in the studio here. It's with our backs turned. There you go. So what I'd like you to do is scroll up on that picture. Just
swipe up on the picture?
Yep.
Okay.
So what you're going to get...
I've never seen this before.
So what you're going to get, and if you don't mind, maybe just describe to the folks at home what you just got when you scrolled up on that image. So let's just say you're the predator. I can't always be the predator in these situations. It's too creepy. So this time,
I agree.
This time you're the predator, I'm the kid. We met on Roblox, and you told me, hey, we're buddies. Just send me a picture. And let's say I'm a little nervous, and so I just take a picture of my body, not even my head, which I've heard kids say they think that solves that. I just sent you that picture. You don't know me. Now, what do you have?
So, okay, you sent me this picture. I just swiped up on the picture, which I've never swiped up on a picture ever.
Sure.
That anybody's ever sent me. It tells me the date, the time. And then at the bottom, it has looks like a map, like what you'd have on Google Maps or something.
That's right. So if you click on that map.
Click on the map.
Now,
there's the picture.
sitting on this
sitting
address.
at my address.
That's right. Now, so the point being
Okay.
is a child who never said their name, never said where they go to school, never
Right.
said anything, but texted a picture with metadata. I slide up on that because that's the functionality of iOS. I now know exactly
So
where
they
that
had
picture was taken.
pinpointed the location
to their
of
house.
where the kid's at
That's
when
right.
he took the picture.
That's exactly right.
What happens if I click on that location? Can I drive to that
Well,
location?
so great point. There are apps out there that will sort through the metadata, and it's up on the screen for the folks to see.
But if I just keep zeroing in on
It'll
that,
take you right there.
No, I can see the cross street.
Yep. But
Wow.
there's also functionality on here now where basically I can click on the link and it will get Google Maps or Apple Maps, whatever we like, to drive me to that house.
So now this monster can just go sit out in front of the house and wait for the kid
precisely
to
right.
walk
And
outside.
it all came from basically the app enabled
Just
or the
from
device
sending
enabled.
one picture.
Right. So how do we turn that off?
Wow.
Because that's alarming, right? So up on the screen,
Yeah, I want to turn mine off.
iPhone device, you would go into settings, you go into privacy and security,
Yeah.
you go into location services, and what you're gonna get is you're gonna get every app, a list of every app that's using your location.
Yeah.
Turn off all of those unessential apps, and on the camera app, change it from when in use to never. What
never.
that's gonna prevent is when I text you an image, that metadata is not gonna be readily available to you. It's as simple as that. That's how you solve that problem. But that's
They'll swipe up and nothing
there
will
won't be
happen.
anything there. That's right.
I mean, these are simple steps.
Simple.
I want to stop and say, if you're watching this right now, I think we're over 300,000 people watching this live. Again, I want to thank President Trump for reposting this live stream with myself and Agent Fetting from Homeland Security. Thank you so much, Mr. President, and all of my friends and influencers and followers who have reposted this. Thank you very much. I would ask you to repost this. If you haven't yet, repost this. Also, we're recording this, and so it will live permanently here on X. It will also be put on YouTube. It will be put on Rumble. It will be put on websites through the Homeland Security website. So if some of your friends couldn't see it tonight, trust me, they'll be able to see it. I want you to ask, I just want to recap for a second, because this has been a ton of information. You just gave a really simple way, two really simple ways. One, to guard your kids on Instagram, for instance, is to set it to private.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's across all social media, public to private, all location settings,
all
and
social
all privacy.
media,
That's right.
public to private.
That's right.
That's literally one click private.
Yep.
Correct?
Yep.
Then you said on social media, go through their follower accounts one by one, and if they don't know who it is, you get rid of them. Okay, and then when it comes to picture location services, same thing.
Yep, turn off the metadata.
Just turn it off.
That's right. So the location service
Location
won't show up in
services are
photos.
just off.
That's right. So if you text them, if you email them, that location.
So these are things that any parent watching right now, within 5 minutes of having their kid's phone or laptop, can do those things.
Simple. Yep.
And how much safer are they at that point?
You've mitigated almost all of the risks when it comes to the exposure that we just talked about.
You've almost locked them all out at that point.
And it was all very simple and very
You guys catching that? It's as simple as that. Okay.
All right.
Please continue.
No, I will. And folks, we appreciate it. You know, we've had such good conversation. I know we're starting to sort of get close to button up with time, and we had that little delay in there, but hang with me because we have some more case examples and some really important stuff. And then at the end, we have all the resources.
I'd like to say before we get into that, if you have questions for Agent Fetting, go to the comment section on this live stream at John Rich. Type in your question. We have other agents from Homeland Security sitting in the room right now monitoring the comments. So if you have a specific question, type that question out, and we're going to pick a few of the best ones, and we're going to answer those at the end before we close up. Okay, go ahead.
All right, so let's talk about the permanency of data. It goes from that personal information to just thinking about the permanency of data. The things that you see up on the screen right there, pranks, drinking and drug use, fight videos, bullying, that's the kind of thing so the predatory thing is probably the worst thing that can happen to your child, but it is not the highest percentage thing. It is the things like this. It's the silly and goofy things that kids choose to post. It's the things that teens want to send out there, maybe because they think it looks cool or whatever the fact may be. But what we see time and time again in the news is how do these things come back and haunt celebrities, athletes, politicians? You know, something that was tweeted or sent out or put on X 10 years ago, someone reposts that when someone is running for office, or maybe they just won an award, or for a teen, you're trying to get a scholarship at a major D1 university. And these things will come back to haunt you. Major universities are rescinding offers because as they look into these children's backgrounds, they realize their timelines show something that they don't want to offer a scholarship to bring into their program. That's a big one, but It's important to understand, especially for the youth, that something like Snapchat, right? So Snapchat sort of breeds this fallacy that data is impermanent because, in theory, snaps disappear.
Right.
That's a very naive thinking, and I want to, really explain to teens why that is. If I have another device, if I take your phone and I'm hanging out with friends and you send me a snap and I take a picture of that, it's now saved forever, whatever you just sent. I, in law enforcement, can subpoena servers and Snapchat and get a bunch of data back. There's still forensically available data on devices that sits there for a while, but on top of that, there's also apps on the App Store that are designed to capture snaps. I don't want kids to fall into this idea that any app, whether they're an encrypted app, end-to-end encryption, WhatsApp, Signal, whatever, that encryption is only as good as the ends to ends. So if someone is not trustworthy, if someone gets brought into a group chat, if someone takes screenshots, don't believe the idea that everything you send out doesn't have some kind of permanency.
If they want to get you, they will.
Correct. And there's always a way to do it. And I think that's important. But that's not even the predators. That's just the long living stuff, the thing that can come back to stop us from getting a great job, a great career, an internship. This is not even the predatory practices. This is just the stuff that gets put out there, the garbage. How do we want to represent ourselves in the future? That's a big one. And it's really important for parents to sort of shepherd their kids through. And this is sort of a humorous depiction of that, but it's important for folks to understand, like, once you send something out, you can't get it back. The power of the United States government cannot retract an image once it is out there in the collections, in the population, and out on the timelines. So talking about, we've hit on this a lot, but turning off the location features on all apps and social media is huge. Talking about the permanency of data is huge. Creating clear expectations. You talked about the contracts with children. That's a really great way to do it. Social media is set to private. All of those things are huge. And get rid of those strangers off those friends lists. So the last topic before we hit the solutions, we've talked about sexting and sextortion a bit. There's two types now. So for the longest time, we've seen in sextortion, which is basically some offender gaining compromising images or videos of a child, then turning around and blackmailing them for either more content, or now what we're seeing is financial sextortion, which is for financial gain. So NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, has a great video that they put out. It's a 60-second video that basically depicts what does sextortion look like and how do we see it in our investigation. So I'll play this video really quick and then we'll discuss it.
Hey Zach, it's me. I can't stop thinking about you. I know you've been waiting for this for a while. I wanted to give you something special.
Got it. And then we'll do a couple of questions and wrap.
Who are you? Why are you doing this?
This is a real case example. This is an individual that you arrested here in Tennessee, Kendall Carter. So why we highlight this is because basically Kendall Carter was an individual who had created dozens of profiles on social media looking like same-aged boys and girls. Those images that you see up there that are blurred out are some examples of images that he stole from children and basically created profiles. This individual was sextorting a bunch of young kids, not just in the Tennessee area, but in the United States. But what's important to understand and why I depict this is what the real offender looks like. On the right there is what the child sees and who the child thinks is their friend or the person that they can trust. And we have seen in these investigations dozens and dozens of profiles to the point where we had one case where one of these girls was being sextorted by one of these individuals. She was trying to protect what she thought was one of her friends on social media to tell that other girl, watch out for this guy. She was talking to the same guy. He had created another profile. She was speaking to him about him, saying, watch out for this guy. So
these guys, I mean,
100%
they know
right.
no limits.
So that's an important thing to highlight. And now what we have up on the screen there is real pieces of evidence. This is real sextortion chats that were sent out. I'm gonna let folks read this as I talk. FB is Facebook, Kik is Kik Messenger. I think it's important to highlight, so this particular text string was being sent to an 11-year-old little girl by a group of individuals, one individual in particular. And you can see that horrible and harassing language. We're all around you. Your parents are going to find out. You have no choice but to obey us. threatening, go in the bathroom, take these images now, or I'm sending these out to your friends, your family, your followers. This is classic sextortion. This is real information. But in that investigation, and why it's important to talk about this, is there were 52 little girls that were in the US and Canada that were being extorted by this individual who was down in Louisiana, and 4 other individuals. Only that little girl told her mom about this. And that's the only reason why law enforcement was aware. The local sheriff's department contacted us. We very quickly found that individual who was doing that, Matthew Walker, down in Louisiana, arrested him. He's doing federal prison time as well. But I think it's important to highlight, and that kid was a first-year law student at a prominent college down there. Again, going to the idea that you can't just think you know what a predator might look like. It could be just about anybody. So that's sextortion. That's what it looks like. But now, that's all content-based. That's these predators wanting more content. Now what we're seeing is true transnational criminal organizations out of the Ivory Coast, West Africa. This is exactly how it looks. We're getting a ton of these leads. We have been now for about 2.5 years, targeting oftentimes boys our son's age, that high school age range. It looks exactly like this. They'll get a message on Instagram from maybe a same-aged female or an early 20-year-old female. It'll say something like, hey, you know, I think your profile looks cute, or I know Mark or Jim, because they've looked through the contacts because these are public profiles. They will then send an inappropriate image that they've stolen from these females. These boys, being hormonal, whatever, they, you know, being silly, dumb, will send a compromising image back. These organized crime groups will take a screenshot of the image. They'll take a screenshot of the contacts, and they will tell this child, if you don't now send me $500, $800, $1,000, I'm sending this picture to all of these contacts. And then they're telling these children, these kids, how to do it. Do you have Cash App? Send me a peer-to-peer payment. Go down to your local Walgreens and load a prepaid card. Give me the prepaid card number. They're even guiding them to cryptocurrency sites. Take money out of your bank account, put it in cryptocurrency, send it to this wallet. So the number one thing that teens need to understand, and I'm talking directly to the teens right now, and that's boys and girls, don't pay. So the first thing is don't pay, because in reality, those images are out there. If you pay, all you're doing is perpetrating the crime. And really, what's to stop them from turning right around and asking you for more money? Instead, stop contact, block that offender, tell a trusted adult. And I know that's embarrassing, and I know that's hard, and I know it may seem like this is a big deal and it's more than it is. Talk to somebody that you trust, and then get that person to talk to law enforcement.
And it could be a coach.
Could be a coach.
Could be a teacher.
That's right.
It could be your uncle. It could be the next door neighbor. Somebody that if you're like, I just can't bring myself to tell my parents. If there's anybody that you feel like you can tell, you have to tell them. You had told me something too before we started, that when parents have a child that has been targeted and assaulted like this, I believe you said, don't delete the information. Is that correct?
That's right. So
because that helps you in the investigation.
That's right. So that's to my next point, which is, I know the mama bear, the papa bear in us, you want to just get rid of that device, get rid of that social media, get rid of that thing. But the problem with that is a lot of that is critical evidence for us. The images are critical evidence. IP addresses are critical, usernames, phone numbers, any kind of data that we can extract is really critical for us. So the guidance is stop contact. Don't go back and forth with this offender. Don't answer anymore. Block. Save the evidence, contact trusted adults to contact law enforcement. And then we will take it from there. And oftentimes, and I mean oftentimes, and this is for the teens that feel like something just happened and they're overwhelmed and they want to go to extreme results. Unfortunately, we've seen a rise in teen suicide because of this type of behavior, because they think they've made such a mistake that they can't overcome it. That is not the truth. We can work through this. There are ways to weather that storm. We can catch these offenders. There are counselors that can work through this stuff. It should never be that result. And I can't stress that enough.
You're a victim.
You're a victim.
You did not perpetrate
You are
this.
not a criminal. You are a victim. And if they tell you that you're a criminal for sending images, that is 100% a lie, just like everything else they've told you is a lie.
There you go.
So we will protect. We will
That
help.
is good to know.
Yep, that's right. So tips to protect on sexting and sextortion. Just remember, once you send a compromising image out, it lasts forever and you can't control it. Saving the evidence is a big one for us. And I really want to highlight something, which is this is going to oversimplify this, but it's actually the way to stop this is if you never send an inappropriate image or video out of your device, you cannot have this happen to you. Like if you just decide not to send something out, something compromising, something that might get you in a problem that's going to last on your timeline or fall into strangers' hands, again, you've done so much to protect yourself. That's a big one. So we've talked about a lot of things. I'm sure parents at home right now are thinking they want to rip their Wi-Fi out and hit devices with a hammer and sort of go nuts.
Right.
Let's talk about the solutions and then we can wrap this up. So for the teens, this is a big one. If something happens to you or you've fallen into one of these traps or you have basically been tricked, build an exit strategy. Tell somebody that you trust, and it's up on the screen right now. Basically, stop all contact with that person. Don't delete that stuff. We need it. Remembering that you are not alone, and also remembering that this happens to way more people than you actually think. You are not alone. This is something that we can overcome. So build that exit strategy. And then for parents, a big one is just to look at the common indicators. Sudden mood changes, withdrawing from the family, being evasive, trying to lock passwords, shutting down devices, hiding so that you can't find things that are on their phone. These are all at least red flag indicators that you should have conversations with your child.
I think it's good to pause right there because I think a lot of parents, if their kid starts to withdraw, starts to get quiet, they're not acting right, it's easy just to go, well, he's just a teenager.
Right.
Oh, he'll grow out of it. Well, no big deal. Hey, she's just being a teenager. That may not be the case.
Correct.
So it really should send a red flag of, I wonder if something's actually going on that she's not telling me about.
Right.
And it could very well be something like this.
That's exactly right. Yep. And so now on the screen, there's going to be 2 slides. And what I'd love for folks to do is basically try and do a screen grab, or at least when we record this, you can go back and look at this. These are top 10 tips that we came up with both for parents, and then the next one is for teens. We came up with this list in the office one day. We had come back from a really horrible search warrant, seen a lot of really bad stuff, sort of decompressing and talking to each other. And we said, look, what are 10 things that parents could do that are completely easy that would have gotten all these kids out of these risks? And it's the things that you see up there. It's all the things that we talked about. I'll let the folks just read through these.
They should screenshot this.
Absolutely.
I think the agent made a great call. If you're on your iPhone or you're on a tablet, you can screenshot what you're looking at right now. That's really important. Screenshot that, save it. That way you can refer to this when this live stream's over and you want to dig deeper on these tactics.
And communication is honestly key. Just talking to your child, being involved, snooping a little bit, that's the number one thing. And then everything else we talked about, blocking, setting from public to private, getting rid of strangers, having conversations, everything's up there is super important. And then for the teens, it's a lot of the same stuff. It's basically remembering not to leave those gaming platforms, understanding what grooming looks like. The various things that we've talked about tonight are on that screen right now, and we want folks to take a picture of it, remember it, refer back to Know2Protect.gov, where we're going to have a bunch of this information housed. All of that is extremely important. And so the resources available to you. So these are some of the partners to the Know2Protect program. We got the Family Online Safety Institute, the commonsensemedia.org, the Carly Ryan Foundation, and also NCMEC has a great program called the Take It Down program, where basically if nudes get leaked out or something happens, you can contact the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They will work with the tech industry to try to scrub those offending accounts to remove those images. And then lastly, and this is a big one, this is the federal government's response to everything that we just talked about, and it's know2protect.gov. It's up on the screen right now. It has a QR code. There's also a link right there so that you can click on it and go to the site. We have videos, tip sheets, handouts, everything we discussed, there is a resource for. If you're confused, if you have a problem, there's also tip lines. So know2protect.gov, it's the Department of Homeland Security's forward-facing effort. It's 1 year old as of this month. We're very proud of it, and I think I can't praise this program enough.
Well, is there a number that a parent can call or a kid can call if they don't want to tell their parents about this, that the kid can actually make this report on their own?
So right here, we actually have a bunch of different tip lines that are up on the screen.
Screenshot this too, guys.
And again, you're forecasting the next thing.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm on pace with you, but yeah, screenshot this one too. HSI tip line 1-866-347-2423. So if someone calls that number, someone will answer that phone call?
That's right, and you can leave a tip, and then it will basically filter down to the field office.
And that will start an investigation.
That's right.
Incredible.
Yep, and so these are the different resources for parents. And remembering, the biggest thing is families are not alone. Like, there are resources out there in the world, and it's important to remember. And that brings us sort of the close of this IGuardian presentation, at least for this portion of it. And I know there's some questions.
It's incredible. We have a few questions. Thank you guys, first of all, for watching. Incredibly impactful. We do have a few questions, so we'll move through these fairly quickly. But let's get the real answers here. First question: what are some signs that a kid might be in trouble and they're trying to hide it?
So things that we actually discussed. So one of the number one tactics of a predator is trying to withdraw or remove a child from their support network and make them rely on that individual. So if a child is basically being withdrawn, wanting to only be talking to certain strangers online, basically being removed from the support structure, that's a big one. Showing signs of depression and concern, being evasive. If I walk into the room and you quickly hide your phone and then I ask, hey, let me look at your device, and you don't want to let me do it at all costs.
Right.
You try to lock it out with a different password. All of these things are indicators and signs that something is going on.
Yeah.
Something else needs to be done. A conversation needs to be had.
Second question, if a parent changes the settings on a kid's iPhone, can the kid go back in and change it back?
So if we're talking about iPhone, this is a really good point. So iPhone has really good stuff built right into it. So Family Share is a great feature built into iPhone. And this is something, I'm so glad this person asked this question, because one of the top tips that I didn't mention for parents is to lock down that app store so that kids can't just get any app, any game that they want. It has to come through you. So Family Share is an example of built-in security feature in the iPhone. If I'm basically the controlling account and you're my child, I link you to my account. I can set time limits on all of your different devices, screen time limits. You have to ask me for permission for any app on the App Store. You can even do that remotely. I can be traveling for work and you can be at home in the living room and you can say, man, I would really love to get Snapchat.
Right.
And you ask dad, and dad can say yes or no remotely.
Dad's
so
nope.
So the answer is, if you have something on
Right.
Snapchat and you as the parent control that password, they're not going to be able to change those settings back.
But if you don't control it, then yes, if you go
That's
on
right.
their phone and do
yeah,
it,
if
yes,
you
they
just
can
go onto
switch it
their
right
device
back.
and they know the methodology, they can go
Right.
right back into their own
So you
device.
need
So
to go
Family
into
Share is a great way to do it.
Family Share and do it
We
that
use
way.
Family Share in my house. It's a built-in feature. It's not something that costs extra money, and it's a great way to monitor what's going on.
Another question, how can I request this presentation for my community?
So there's several different ways, but Know2Protect.gov is the best way to do it. Basically, in the IGuardian section, there's a request a presentation. We have special agents, forensic interview specialists, victim assistance specialists, forensic analysts. All of us can do these presentations. We come to schools, churches, corporate lunch and learns, youth serving organizations, you name it,
Wow.
we'll be there. And this is something we love to do.
See, I don't think people knew before you said that or this live stream that Homeland Security agents are out in the field going to where the people are doing this. I didn't know it. I didn't know it until you did one here in Nashville and I heard about it.
It's the passion.
Thank God you guys are willing to do that.
When you see the horrible things that are happening, you just want to get out there and make sure it doesn't happen. Let as many people
God
as
bless
you
you
can know.
guys. Last question.
Yep.
What's the best way to start this conversation with my kid?
So just look, having an open dialogue at an early age is a big one. Just talking to them about the fact that maybe it's the fact that you just watched this presentation online and it sort of popped some ideas into your head that you'd love to discuss with a child. If there's not a starter like that, there are so many great resources out there. So NetSmarts, so NCMEC, the National Center for Missing Exploited Children, has NetSmartsKids.org. That has a bunch of great videos that you can show a young child, elementary school aged kid, to sort of bridge that gap and begin talking to them. Thorn.org is another amazing resource, which very age-appropriate videos.
Yeah.
You can show a child a video or show them a lesson online. Know2Protect has Know2Protect Kids. You can go in there and there are coloring pages. So for the young ones,
perfect.
Just introduce it as, hey, here's a coloring page, and hey, by the way, I learned something, and you just bridge that gap like that. There are so many resources out there for parents.
You can just tiptoe into it.
100% right.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would like to say for that last question, if you want this presentation, but let's say there's only a certain amount of agents, it's a big country, and there's millions of people that would like to see this live. If you can't get somebody live to come there, this entire live stream is being recorded. It will live on YouTube, it will live on Rumble, it will live right here on X and in other places on the .gov websites. So if you want to get your church together, you want to get your neighborhood together, you want to get your school together, if you can't get an agent to come there, all you've got to do is hit play, put it on a screen, and let everybody watch it. They're going to see the entire thing. I think Agent Fetting has done an incredible job. I'm going to ask you one last thing. And I would say right now, with the amount of people watching this live stream, several 100,000 people, there is a very, very strong chance that there is an active predator or many predators actually watching what we're saying right now. No doubt about it. There are bad guys watching this right now. They're trying to learn what it is that we're saying because we're throwing up blockades around them. We're spilling their secrets right now. So I would like to ask you, as an agent who has hunted these people down, put them in prison for the rest of their lives, and you will continue doing that, as will all the other agents. If you could look into that camera right now and speak to a predator who is probably watching us right now, what would you say to them? Take your time to think about that.
Well, you know, to be honest, this is simple. There's only two options. The first option is that you stop the predatory behavior and you stop your criminal activity. The other option is men and women in law enforcement are going to hunt you down and find you and bring you to justice. There's no third option. You're not going to continue this activity into perpetuity. There are men and women globally dedicated to this fight that basically don't rest, that work on these cases 24/7. We'll find you and we'll prosecute you. So that's it. Two options: stop or be brought to justice.
God bless you. Thank you for everything you're doing. I want to thank Secretary Noem for signing off on this live stream, allowing this to happen. Nothing like this has ever happened before, where civilians are able to sit with people doing this kind of work. I want to thank President Trump for reposting this live stream, and all of my friends, everybody that I texted today and called and direct messaged. Thank you guys for following through and reposting this. For all the parents, all the kids that are watching this, you guys have a call to action now. You guys have the necessary tools you need and the information to make these changes. Make it actionable and share this, okay? This is gonna live right here on X, and I'm gonna let you know in other places it's gonna live. At any given point, you can send that to all of your friends. Send it to everybody that you know and let them watch it. This should be one of the biggest viral moments in social media history. This is more important than politics. It's more important than culture. It's more important than all the stuff that we get tied up with every day. This is the real stuff right here. So please step up, be an American, be a patriot, look out for your friends and neighbors and send this message forward. Thank you guys for joining us here tonight and for sticking with us the whole time. Thank you to Homeland Security and Agent Fetting for coming in and giving us all this info.
And if I can thank one more group of folks.
Sure.
The men and women in law enforcement that work this crime type, state and local detectives, ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children detectives, constantly getting cyber tips, having to run this stuff down. Federal agents, the men and women of Homeland Security investigations, our partners at the FBI, Secret Service that are working this crime type and supporting investigations globally. Look, the thing that folks don't understand about this is the men and women that work this crime type, they have to see broken, devastated families. They have to interview children in distress in the worst moments of their life. They have to view the worst of the worst things happening because they have to testify to this stuff. This weighs heavy on those individuals' mental health. They struggle from that as well. We owe a giant debt of gratitude to the men and women of law enforcement that work this crime type, the victim assistance specialists, the forensic interview specialists, those forensic analysts that sit and comb over horrendous terabytes of data and sit in a dark room and look at that stuff all day. We owe them a lot as well. And I wanted to highlight that because
Absolutely.
I would be remiss if I didn't say that there is
Absolutely.
a group of heroes out there. They're amazing folks that are doing this.
Unsung heroes doing the toughest job in our country. And we appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you guys for tuning in. And have a great evening. Have a great rest of the week. Go ahead and send this forward every chance you get. Take this information and take action. Take action right now, the second we hang up. God bless you. God bless America. We'll see you soon.